Hello there, you guys, you other struggling hunters that are out there. You got me, Joe, and then on the other side, you got,
I'm Eric.
and like we said, we're the struggling hunters. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed our last podcast. I think this one here, we're gonna go back to our, I guess, our history lessons, and hopefully, you guys enjoyed a couple of those episodes. But this time, uh, we're going to go even further into history, and hopefully we can keep your interest. We're going to be discussing Daniel Boone, and I guess one of the first frontiersmen, and we'll see what do you have, Eric?
Yeah, so obviously we're doing Daniel Boone. Uh, I've been wanting to do this for a while because as growing up, you always hear of Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett, and for both of them to a sense, unless you're a history buff and you kind of hear, oh, they were great hunters, great expeditionists, and but that's about as far as it goes. So I wanted to take a little deeper dive. Now there's so much more about Daniel Boone than what I'll probably talk about tonight, but kind of give you an overview of how he became famous and why he's still talked about today. That's kind of what I have down. The research that I did was mostly kind of focused toward that, of kind of what made him so great and still talked about to this day. I mean, we're talking uh, you know, over 200 years later, and we're still talking about him. So, with that said, I'll just kind of get into it. And Daniel Boone, he was born November 2nd, 1734. It's a crazy time. That was obviously before America became America.
True.
Um, what would that be exactly? 42 years before, something like that. Anyway, he was born in Pennsylvania in 1734 to Squires and Sarah Boone. Um, the one thing about Daniel Boone is there's a lot of myth, and then there's a lot of truth. And like all the history people have said that I've been researching, is kind of funny that he has a lot of myth to his name, because the factual stories about him are very interesting themselves. But as any story goes, every time it gets passed to the next person. For example, a lot of people kind of say that the first time that he got a hunting rifle was whenever he was 13, but some people say like he was 10 whenever he got his first hunting rifle. So it's stuff like that, try to make it a little bit younger to make him sound more of a mythological person. Um, so with that said, Daniel, they say that Daniel learned to hunt from the Lenape Indians, which I guess they. So the Boones were part of a Quaker community, and I guess they had a relationship, and so they had a tight relationship there. Now it's kind of weird because as time goes on, Daniel Boone had battles with some other tribes and Indian tribes in later on in life. But with that said, that's where he learned to hunt. Supposedly was from the Lenape Indians, and in 1750 they moved to North Carolina. Um, Boone served in the French and Indian War under Edward uh, Braddock, and I don't have it written down, but I guess later on in life, Daniel actually talked about General Braddock and said that he was not a very good leader, caused a lot of death and stuff like that. Some of this stuff, Buff, you're probably gonna fact check me, but I just, like I said, I just tried to get to where I kind of understood why he became such a legend. Not so much trying to write down every little exact thing that he did in life, but I thought that was kind of interesting because he served in the military, but at that time I think it was under British rule, And then later on in life, whenever America uh, colonized, he let me see if I get this right. He sided with the Americans, so he fought early in the military under the British rule, but later on he was an American, I guess you could say, and served under them. Um, while he was in the French and Indian War, he met a guy named John Finley and basically bragged about how beautiful it was and how nice it was. And Kentucky at that time wasn't settled, um, wasn't a settlement place, so it was kind of untouched land, if you will. And and so he kind of told them about it, and then the war was over, and he went back to uh, North Carolina, and he met Rebecca Bryan, who he married in August 14th, 1756. And in 1761, I must have messed up here because in 1761, he moved to North Carolina. And that's where he did a lot of hunting and trapping and trading for fur. And I think that's where he started getting his name for the expeditions and the hunting that he did. Um, and he moved there. And then on May 1st of 1769, he saw Finley again around that time, and Finley again told him about Kentucky. And so they both decided with a few other people to move move into Kentucky. And there, um, once they moved in there, the Shawnee Indians captured him, uh, and they actually captured him twice. And the first time they took all of his pelts, all of his fur, and he survived. And this little story here, I heard in all the research that I did. I heard that story in every single uh, thing that talked about Daniel Boone. And to go in a little depth on Daniel, they say that he was like a smooth guy. He could he kind of talk his way out of anything or talk his way into anything. You know, he had a lot of charisma, and they say that from what they understand about him, like he didn't really ever get mad or angry and try to like, like he kind of knew when he'd been had. And so whenever they took his all his fur and everything that he was going to use to probably sell and make some money, he didn't get mad about it. But that's the reason that he survived. He didn't try to fight back. He just like, okay, you take it, you win the battle. And he moved on. And he moved on, and then over there, while they were there in 1775, he created a settlement named Boonesboro. Now, in another thing that it was a podcast, I believe, that I listened to. They kind of went in depth on that, on Boonesboro settlement. And he said that, I can't remember the guy's name, but they actually had, it was Boonesboro settlement, but he wasn't the general in the settlement. He was actually just a captain, but he had so much charisma. When stuff would happen, the people there would just kind of look to him for leadership. And the general, like I said, the name is skipping me, but the general got mad and didn't like that, basically got jealous. And and they he sued him for treason, which Boone was later on acquitted of all the charges, because there wasn't nothing there. But that was just how like charismatic he was. Is he wasn't even the captain at his. Well, it kind of says two things about him. He was a very humble guy, a very humble, and not. It's weird because he was charismatic, but he was also humble, and and so people looked at him because for his charisma. They looked toward him as a leader, but he was also a very humble and reserved man, from what they said. And like I said, that general didn't like that, because whenever things would go down, they would all look to Boone instead of the general. And later on, they uh, they went to court over or and trying to get Daniel Boone for treason. And like I said, he was acquitted of those charges, and nothing ever came of it. But anyway, so he created Boonesboro, and then that survived. I can't remember how long that survived, but that was kind of it too in Kentucky. And then something else to note: on July 5th, 1776, the exact day after America became America, the Declaration of Independence was signed or written. Uh, Boone's daughter was kidnapped by the Shawnee Indians, and it was kind of a good story, I guess you could say. He caught up with the few tribe members. He caught up with them, and he got his daughter back. No foul, but he did get her back. And I don't have this written down, but there was another war or another battle where he lost his second to eldest son, I believe. I
Yeah.
forgot to write that little story down, but he lost his second to eldest son to a battle with the Indians. But I want to say what I remember about reading about that was he didn't he wasn't exactly there, and the people that charged forward, he blamed himself for that, for losing his son to that situation, but he wasn't even there uh in that particular battle. It was somebody else leading the charge, but he blamed himself his whole life about that. So yeah, I guess he kind of lived with a lot of guilt there. Got to write this down too, but I want to say that he had like 11 children. So
Yeah, that's what I believe. That's what I read, was that he had somewhere 11 children, and then the one of the stories I read too. I don't know how true it was, but one of the times that because I only think I only saw it in one of the readings, was that one of the times he was captured by the Indians. He was captured for so long that his wife thought he was dead, and so um, his wife went and, I guess, I don't know if she married his brother, but slept with his brother and was pregnant by his brother, and they had one of their daughters that I guess Boone claimed and as one of his own, and then went back to life. But I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know. Thought I was dead,
yeah,
but I wasn't.
yeah, I read that same thing, and I thought that was interesting too. He came back and he's like, "Oh wait, what happened here? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Well, you know what? You guys, it's okay. You guys thought I was dead." I mean, it kind of really shows his character. He was kind of, back in those days, I mean, people would shoot each other for that, but he was like, "I get it. You guys thought I was dead.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's
We
it.
all have our needs."
I mean, but just kind of, I thought about that. I was like, put yourself back in that time, and I mean, could you imagine being captured? And like, back then, I mean, even today, I don't think capturees are allowed to communicate with family, but you really have no word, like, as if you were captured, killed, or what, so
Yeah.
man, imagine being sitting there in the teepee or whatever, and like not knowing, not being able to do anything. I don't know what they did with the people that were captured, but you didn't have your phone to to TikTok with someone, or I don't know, but and then yeah, I just kind of thought that, putting myself in his shoes, and kind of wondered what that would be like to be captured.
Yeah, I know, like, I mean, the things that we think that are hard today, you know, I mean, he'd probably be laughing. He'd probably be thinking, "Oh man, that'd be a good day for me." You know, in certain aspects. I mean, you know, I, it's kind of crazy that but they all I, you know, guys like this, like, I mean, they did it to themselves though. I mean, he didn't have to go on all those expeditions. He could have settled
Right.
and you know, lived a happy life, but he wanted to, you know, have a life of going on expeditions and exploring the mountains and new land. And that was actually another thing that was repeatedly said through every source that I was doing research on was he like moved around a lot, and he had so much fame, like he would move somewhere and then people would start coming in droves following him along, and then he'd get tired of, you know, oh, there's too many people here, and then he'd try to move somewhere else to be kind of what you would consider by yourself. And so it's really I think he was in a real particular spot where he had this fame about him that people wanted to be near him and go wherever he was going. But then at the same time, he wanted to be kind of secluded and by himself. So it was kind of a weird little game there that he had to play, a fine line that he had to walk along. But but speaking of, I don't know if this was the capture that where his wife said, "Ah, he's been gone for so long." But kind of moving on from what we were just talking about, in January of 1778, basically the village was getting low on food and salt to keep their meat good. So they're gonna go on an expedition to get more supplies, basically. And on that expedition, the Shoshones, is that right? I said it. The Shawnees Indians captured Boone again. This was the second memorable time, by the Warrior of Blackfish was his name. And after being there a while, they were they were impressed by Boone's way to hit the thing, or how he hunted, trapping skills. And so they kind of gave him more freedom. They kind of adopted him in the tribe and gave him more freedom. Eventually, after about 4 months, he escaped from there, and obviously, he went back to Boonesboro for a while, but he escaped back there and got away from the tribe. And I don't know, kind of went after him or if they just let him go. I it didn't really say anywhere, so I don't know. And then, but to kind of get into where he gained most of his popularity, or where he became a national star, if you will, on his 50th birthday, on Daniel Boone's 50th birthday, uh, November 2nd, 1784, John Filson released a book called The Discovery, Settlement, and Present State of Kentucky, which was a lot about Boone and all his expeditions into Kentucky. And it made Boone a very well known man. Boone also, he was a surveyor and kind of a businessman. He had a trading post and a bar. You know, he wasn't the greatest businessman, um, but this was kind of interesting to me. Like, he would build a little bit of estate and money and wealth, and then he would like somehow one way or another end up losing it over time. Um, he had a lot of debt, so I guess he over leveraged himself. In today's terms, he over leveraged himself and would end up losing his business and a lot of his land. He also had disputed land claims. So and so supposedly he was a pretty good surveyor, but what he wasn't good at was how he wasn't good at the paperwork side of it, I guess you will, if you will. So he got sued a lot, and that's how he lost a lot of his land that way. and in life, he moved to Upper Louisiana, which is now known as Missouri. Um, and this is when Spain owned it. So that was kind of an interesting story too. So Boone was so well known. The Spain basically reached out to him and said, "Hey, we'll give you some land and have you move down here." And what the idea was is he was such a big name, people would follow. So they wanted to. They were trying. Spain was trying to basically trying to make Spain or the Louisiana territory a little more popularized with people if Boone moved over, or that at least that's what they were saying. Anyways, he moved over there, and then whenever America bought it, was it the president or the guy? I can't remember now off the top of my head, but uh, somebody in government granted him 850 acres of land. But here again, this kind of has two parts to it. He sold off a lot of that land to go back to Kentucky, talking about the debt that he was in and stuff. He was in a lot of debt for a lot of years there, and he sold the 850 acres, which was now Missouri, I believe, at this time. Um, he sold that land and went back to Kentucky and paid off all of his old debts. And so uh there's two parts of this. There's a part where Daniel Boone said, I wanted to basically do the right thing and pay off my old debts. But there was another thing where people heard about him inheriting, basically getting that 850 acres from the government. Turpin was like, "Hey, this guy's in debt. What's he do? How does he get?" So out of kind of social pressure, they say that that's what forced him to sell it off and go back to Kentucky and settle all his debts. But so it's hard to say which one's which. If it was his idea that he wanted to settle his debts to basically, so after he died, he wasn't considered a man that had a lot of unpaid debt, or if it was because of the social pressure from people that found out that he got 850 acres from the government. With that said, though, in 1813, they lived there in Missouri forever, and in 1813, his wife died, and and then he lived on for another 7 years, basically, until 1820, and at the age of 85, he died. Um, and then after he died, kind of like a lot of people, even in today's status, after they die, their legendary status uh, grows tremendously after they die. The same thing happened to Daniel Boone too. His legendary status grew. Mostly, one of the first books that was written after he died was the biographical memoir of Daniel Boone, the first settler of Kentucky. That book, got a lot of notoriety and basically helped him kind of grow into this legendary status. And we still talk about him today. A couple things that I thought was kind of cool. Actually, there's one other. I got a couple things that was kind of cool about just, I guess, like the descendants of Boone and Boone's legacy that carried on. Um, he had four descendants that played in professional baseball. Uh, Ray Boone, his son Bob Boone, and then Bob's kids, Brett and Aaron, all played in professional baseball. And then the singer Pat Boone was also a descendant of Daniel Boone. Now, truth be told, I don't know any of those guys. Way before my time, but I thought it was cool that, he had very well-known descendants, you know, or his descendants kind of made something of themselves later on in life too. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then I forgot the other one that I was going to bring up, but anyway, yeah. So, I don't know. I just thought, Daniel Boone's life was pretty interesting, and it was, the big takeaway is, he did a lot of expeditions, but it seems like the stories that are most notably talked about are kind of more like his time served, him as a businessman. Um, I would like to I'd like to read more up on him about the actual expeditions that he went on. I don't know if he took much of a journal for himself or not, but he was just kind of a well-known man. He was in government. I remember exactly what he did in government, but he served in the military. He was in government. He was a hunter trapper, and then he was a surveyor. He had all kinds of titles throughout his life, and basically the most interesting man in the world during that time. And uh, but at the same time, uh, there's a lot of myth to him too, and just people over time basically making books or TV shows about Daniel Boone, and kind of stretching the truth and making people think that he was something else that he wasn't. But his actual life was pretty cool too. So,
Right.
let me inject this. So his neighbor, one of his neighbors was the great it was either the great or great grandfather of Abraham Lincoln.
Hmm.
And uh I don't know if it was him or his son or somebody, but they also married a cousin of Daniel Boone's. So Daniel Boone's cousin married into the Lincoln family, which later on Abraham Lincoln. So that was kind of an interesting connection too, that had such close ties to the Lincolns.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of crazy or interesting too. Like, thinking you try to draw your timeline and put Daniel Boone in the timeline of the American history, and where Abraham Lincoln was, and all that too. Like, what am I getting at? Just the fact that this has all happened years before us, but even then, before Abraham Lincoln, there was Daniel Boone.
Yeah.
But one of the things too is try to not to forget is back then, during that time, the Kentucky, the Ozarks, and all that, like that was pushing west. Like the to everybody back then, you hit that line, and everything further west than that was kind of the end of the world almost. Well, it kind of was. How no one really knew how to survive. Well, I mean, of course they knew how to survive, but being a frontiersman, you know, and a trapper or whatnot, that's when it kind of really took off or began, because you had to be self-sufficient and be able to live off the land, provide for yourself without a settlement. Like a lot of back then with all the Indians and all the wars, there was safety in numbers. So for him to take off and go by himself, yeah, it's kind of a big, a big step at times, and you can see why he got captured a handful of times.
Yeah, some of his expedition, they most everybody pretty much said that is he would take off for months on end, on his expeditions, and just kind of stroll back eventually. And a matter of fact, actually, on the Wikipedia, there's a quote from Daniel Boone, kind of ties into just that. He says, "I can't say I've ever been lost. I ever was lost, but I was bewildered once for 3 days." So it's kind of interesting. Funny guy. But yeah, that was the thing. There's so much history on him, there's so much stories about him, but and I can't remember everything, but I do remember that I really took that in is he was he was a smart, kind of a smooth talker. Could talk you into anything or talk you out of anything. he would get in those situations with the Indians where most people during those times would get mad. If you took all their everything that they had on their back, if you took all that from you, they'd be mad and try to fight back or whatever, and he'd be like, okay, you can take it. And it saved his life. They say, don't come back here again. That was something that the Shawnees, um, they would, they warned him that don't ever come back here. And then oh, yeah, nobody, I won't. And then, a few years later, they forgot all about telling him not to come back. Because, but he stayed alive through all that, where most people during those times probably would have been killed, especially during the war times.
Right. And it's kind of interesting though too. So if you think, how he was so easy going about, getting all the stuff taken and how other people would be mad about it. Like I was kind of putting myself in that predicament myself. I'm trying to think back to 1700s sometimes. I'm spending months on end all by myself without what do you call, what is it, a shuttle, or what do you call the guy that if you're running a marathon or doing a race, like there's a van following along to help you your flat tires and give you food or whatnot.
Yeah, pace. No, it wouldn't be a pace car. I know what you're talking about though. Like kind of
So
like a shuttle.
yeah, so like you kind of think, he didn't have that back then. You didn't have Grubhub or Amazon Prime to get you. So like if you're so I think they had Kentucky long rifles back then, and if you ran out of patches for your black powder, your patch and ball, or you ran out of black powder or flint or whatever, it's not like you're like, oh, I'll just get on the old the old what I don't even know what you would call it.
Get on. Yeah, let me. Hey, we just ran out of black powder. Let me get on Prime. It'll be here in 2 days.
Right, like so and then if you think if you kidnapped and then or not, I guess not kidnapped, but apprehended by another uh another set of people, and they take everything you have, and everything you have was your survival for months. You can see why people would get mad, because now they got to survive this situation that they're in, being apprehended, and then they got to survive when they're not apprehended, when they're if when they're released, but these people have kept all their gear, and how are you going to survive now? So now you got to be a pretty good woodsman or a frontiersman to be able to survive, get back to civilization, to restock, resupply. And so I guess in a
Right.
way that that is a good what's that? Then the other fight or flight, you know, when he hit when instead of letting fear get in the better of him and really getting irritated or mad at the situation, his reaction was to stay calm, and it is what it is. It seems like.
Yeah, I think that personality trait really helped keep him alive for a lot of years, and I mean, or until he finally passed away from old age. But it sounds like he got himself in situations that, I mean, I already said it, but could have killed. Most people would have gotten killed, and he managed to stay alive. So it's is an amazing is kind of an amazing guy that way. Um, and uh,
Did did
I
did
go
you
ahead.
have? I was gonna have it pulled up, but how many years he spent in legislation? But like I just was sitting there thinking, because it's kind of interesting, that he, that one of the things I read too said he wasn't like wasn't very highly educated, but when he'd go out on his excursions or his braving the woods, he'd always had a couple books with him too. So he kept himself read, or up being able to read, which was like kind of probably big back then too. So
Yeah.
he wasn't highly educated, but he was educated.
Yeah. I can't remember if I read it or heard it, but his brother's wife actually is the one that taught him how to read. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know how much like actual school. Did they have much of an education schooling system in
I think that
1730?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm sure there was something, but
Yeah. It's funny how this stuff, in all honesty, gets more interesting to you the older you get. Because I mean, I, whenever I was younger, I heard all these legends and I was like, that's cool. Daniel Boone, yeah, great hunter, great expeditionist. But that's about as far as I ever took it. I never really looked into it much further, and now, it's so interesting. I'm not quite seeing anything here on this. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere. I see a couple dates here, but
yeah, that's like
oh wait, I might have found it. Well, in 17 in 1791, he was elected the Virginia legislator for the third time. Oh, okay. So, well, I don't know how long.
how many years that would have been.
Yeah, three terms worth. I don't know what a term is for a legislator. Is it 2 or 4?
Uh,
Most everything most everything in government is 4, I believe. So I don't know. He did a lot in life, but then like I kind of said it earlier, but it was kind of funny. He did so much different things, and he was kind of well known for all of them. But then he would always find himself in debt or some kind of trouble as far as um, the land claims. That was I think that's like one of the biggest things that really hurt him is they basically said that he uh well, let me see here.
but like that's one of the.
After he got sued.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, he had to sell off a lot of his other pretty much the remaining land that he had. He had to sell it off
It seemed like he wasn't scared to try something new. The other interesting thing, though, too, is being able to live to 85 years old.
during that time. I thought that was interesting too. Cause I mean, during those times he had to have been, like 150 in people's eyes during those times. You'd think anyway. Um, Speaking of that though, this is kind of interesting. I just saw this. So man, I really need to. There's a book I should have wrote it, or well, that memoir book I think would be a good one to read more on his life and stuff. I really I need to get it and just like read it to kind of understand more about Boone because he was in so many different things. But I gotta say this: so in 1798, a warrant was issued for Boone's arrest after he ignored a summons to testify in a court case. Although the sheriff never found him, that same year, the Kentucky Assembly named Boone County in his honor. So he was like an outlaw, but then they also recognized him. It's kind of funny. But so yeah, he was a little bit of everything. I mean, he was fur trapper, expeditionist, legislator. I mean, he was kind of a little, just a little of everything.
True. True.
But yeah, very interesting. I don't know. I thought it was kind of a cool little read and I was hurrying up trying to get as much information as I could about him. Uh, we planned on doing this, but it was kind of a rush job, if you will. So I was gonna say, Joe, as far as Daniel Boone goes, I'm kind of done with him. But unless you got something else to say, but I was gonna talk a little bit about the Super Bowl and I guess my hot take on it.
No, I was gonna closing on Daniel Boone would be just thinking of the gear that he would have used back then as far as, the Kentucky long rifle. I didn't look to see what type of a knife they would have carried, but furs and, you know, not having, your Kenetrex or your, high end boots to go hunting in and been doing all that with the primitive that what we consider primitive nowadays. Back in his day, that was high end, probably almost high on the hog in a way. But it's just interesting all what he was able to accomplish in the woods and whatnot with what we consider primitive.
You know, that's a really good point. And I guess it kind of as technology is. I mean, I guess you don't really know any different, right?
Right.
And so, because that's an interesting fact. Because you saying that alone, I'm like, we're kind of a bunch of sissy lalas anymore, man. I'm trying to buy all this fancy gear and trying to make myself more comfortable at the in the woods, and then these guys are wearing uh you know fur coats and whatever else they can grab to get through the winter. And you know I'm trying to make sure that I'm buying top of the line stuff, which is kind of ridiculous, really. I know it's ridiculous. I don't need to buy the top of the line stuff, but I'm kind of a gearhead that way, so it is what it is. But uh yeah, man, we're kind of sissy lalas, man.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I guess in a way, just paying him some homage or some respect for what he did with what he had, and
Yeah.
he probably had a great time. It sounds like if he spent that much time out there. Anyways, that's all I got on it. So,
You know what though? You kind of opened the door for at least one more thing. Uh his marksmanship. That was something that I read too, is he had excellent marksmanship. And that's a lot of the reason that he got so many animals was because of his marksmanship. Now there's one thing though, being a hunter or being I don't know about Kentucky, and I didn't have time to look this up, or it kind of just slipped my mind. But there's one thing that they all consistently said, and I kind of was like, that doesn't sound right. But they all talk about this story whenever he was a younger man, um, that this panther like charged him or whatever, and then he shot the panther, and that kind of like always starts out the mythical persona of Daniel Boone was this panther deal. But to my knowledge, unless I'm wrong, because I mean, obviously, 1750, 1740, whatever, was many years ago. So the landscape and everything could have been different. But to my understanding, panthers aren't much of a North American animal.
they're also referred to as mountain lions.
So whenever they say panther,
They're referring to a mountain lion.
see, that's the problem with historians not understanding what they're actually saying. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
because I mean, in today's terms, that's the one thing that they don't call mountain lions is panthers, right? Because panther is basically a black cat. I mean, it's a black mountain lion, if you will, but
Right.
but I want to say that they enjoy more of like the the like Mexican or Mexico uh landscape down there. That's why, from what I understand, you'll see some that you might be able to find a panther like in Arizona, but probably unlikely. But mostly like Mexico is where you'd see a panther if you were lucky enough to ever see one. From what I understand, that was the only thing I didn't want to bring that up because I was like, it doesn't sound right saying a panther. And then one of the YouTube videos that I watched on that, they said panther. I hope I don't get it wrong or people diss on me, but they said panther and then showed a picture of a cheetah. And I'm like, well, that doesn't look right either.
I
So,
think like panther is kind of a way lumps all big cats together.
oh, is that really a thing, or
I
was that a
think
thing back then?
it could have been, yeah. And I was trying to, I'm going to start speculating. I don't really need to speculate, but especially on that, I don't have all my facts correct. But yeah, I think that's what, a panther is just, they're just lumping that into the big cat category.
Gotcha. That being used that way, so that's kind of new to me. But um, yeah, I thought that was a little weird, but I mean, if that's what it is, but that kind of tells me that people that have researched them as of recently, like they don't really understand what a mountain lion or a panther.
True.
So, but well, with that said, do you have anything else, or
No, I'm good.
all right? Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I started in the second quarter, but yeah,
Yeah, was it kind of uneventful?
it was. That's
I
I think by the third quarter, I was like, Jen, you want to watch a movie?
now I understand that for most people, but I've been a Brady fan for a long time, so I was pretty stoked. And I'll tell you, for me, like I was like, this is the first Super Bowl that I've watched this guy that like I'm like I could take a breath and just enjoy the game. Like his his past his past Super Bowls, I mean, it comes down to the thread every time. It comes down to within 6 points. I think you froze a little bit,
Yeah, I did.
guys. This we've been having some technical difficulties tonight, so bear with us. I don't know what it's going to look like on the final product, but hopefully it's not too bad. But anyway, yeah. Uh, Brady, yeah, it was where you're like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna win this one. And um I've been a Brady fan forever, been Patriot fan forever. Do you remember I think we were freshmen. Do you remember when Drew Bledsoe's dad came to the school and we had like an assembly or whatever, and it might have been in 8th grade because you weren't there in 8th grade, right?
No, I wasn't.
But I know that we went to the high school, and I know that we were in the high school during that assembly, but I can't remember if I was in 8th grade or 9th grade. I know we were younger, but anyways, Drew Bledsoe's dad, who was the quarterback for the Patriots, um, who's also from Washington State, and we were in Idaho. But pretty much from that day forward, I always had a liking for the Patriots because I wanted to you know if you want to call Drew Bledsoe the hometown kid or whatever. He was as close to hometown to us as I could ever imagine. So from that moment on, I was pretty young back then, but from that moment on, I had a bit of a liking for the Patriots, and then so I always kind of kept an eye on them. And then Brady came in, and he started doing his stuff, and yeah, I've been Patriot fan for a long time. One thing that I've noticed that I get, the older I get, the more I realize that I'm more of a player fan than a team fan, if that makes sense. Unless you're from the state, like now I live in Colorado, so I'm obviously a Denver fan. I like Denver, support them. But if you don't have a team in your state, it's kind of pointless to be a diehard. This is just my opinion, so it is what it is. But um, I've I noticed that I like to follow players because whenever I was really young, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, and Steve Young, those three were like what's the word I'm looking for? They were like football gods to me, like and they were all, from the 49ers. So I like the 49ers because of them. I didn't have no attachment to the 49ers necessarily, but I like the 49ers because of those three guys. And then other guys too that played there, like Martin Hanks. I can't remember his name completely, but Ronnie Lott, I think it's Martin Hanks. Who else played there? There's a couple other guys that I really liked, um, that I've, would watch or whatever, and really like the 49ers because of those guys. And the same thing with the Patriots is I'm a Patriot fan still, but I definitely, like to follow the players, and Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers, and Gronkowski going over there. Like, it's just exciting to see them take their career over there. And I've been a Gronk fan since he broke out into the league. And so to watch them guys all year, it was hard to believe whenever I'd be like, let's go Bucks, but it was hard to understand why I was doing that. But it was basically, I'm just a player fan, and I just followed Brady and Gronk, and became a fan of the Bucks because of it. But it's mostly because of Brady and Gronk. But anyways, going back to the Super Bowl, for me, I thought it was great. I mean, I was excited the whole time, and my personal thought is because the Chiefs are just so, they're so lethal. They're a lethal team. I really thought that it might be a good game, but the Chiefs were going to come out on top. I think Mahomes is an excellent quarterback, one of the best that the NFL has ever seen. And so, I mean, I really thought that the Chiefs were going to win, and it didn't work out that way. I was obviously hoping that Brady would get another Super Bowl. I know some people are like, he's had enough, share the wealth. But I mean, whenever you're a fan of the guy,
but if you can win them, why not? Right? Like,
if you can win them, why not?
Just like hunting, if you have the, I mean, we talk about shooting whatever, like little buck, big buck, but if you have opportunity to shoot a big buck every time, that's what you're gonna go after. If you can, you can.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, whatever you can get. And yeah, I mean, I know Brady's had it tough, and, like, I mean, 7 Super Bowls, and, I mean, the guy's had it tough. He's not quite as fortunate as I am, but, he's getting there, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm proud of him. So he's not quite as fortunate as me, but, I'm proud of him. So 7 Super Bowls, man, that's just crazy. I mean, the best, to my knowledge, the most, and the most that's ever been won was 4 by Terry Bradshaw and Joe. And I want to say there's another guy in there, but I can't remember who that is. And then we got Brady that's won 7. And he's been to 10 too. I mean, but he's been in the league for so long. Like, I mean, that is one thing. The guy's literally has enough stats on him that he's literally had 2 careers, 2 Hall of Fame careers at that. So it's amazing. Crazy. But it's a cool story, man, to be living through these times. I mean, I think it's so cool to, because there's stuff like we'll never see going to like basketball. We'll never see a Michael Jordan again. I don't think. I just don't think the league is. A lot of people. The argument is always LeBron or Jordan. I think LeBron is the best player for this time, and I think he's a great player. I mean, I think. Right. I don't know. I mean, but I just don't think that. I don't think that I think that he is a competitor. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a competitor. I think that he fights hard to win. But I think like Jordan, the difference between LeBron and Jordan, in my opinion, is Jordan had like that deep competitive edge. I think LeBron
So
has a lot of skill, but Jordan had that deep competitive edge. After watching The Last Dance, especially that documentary,
yeah.
oh man, I mean, because I used to be like, I don't know, man, maybe LeBron is the better player, right? And then I watched that Last Dance, and I'm like,
Sorry.
were you gonna say something? It froze a little bit there.
It is kind of interesting. They're not, I don't know, interesting or quite the right word, but it seems like everyone these days in the league, not that I know, I'm not that big of a sports, well, don't follow sports that closely, but they're all a little bit heavier, a little bit more muscular nowadays than they were during Jordan's time. But I don't know. I think you kind of have something there to be cut from your high school team. Don't really even play basketball till was it senior year in college?
No, it was senior year in high school, I believe.
No,
That's
I meant what I meant was his senior year in high school and then into college is
yeah.
when he really started playing, and then to become an all time great, like that has to say you can't. I don't know. That says more than I don't know. It's crazy to think though that he got cut because he didn't have the skills, but he practiced hard enough to have the skills.
Yeah, that mental drive, man. It goes to show that you can be anything. I mean, I, Jordan was like 6'3" or so. I mean, he had some attributes about him that really helped him out along the way, but at the same time, I mean, he worked hard for everything that he had, and I mean, it's a good lesson to think, if you just like really work hard at what you want, and
Well, and
it can happen.
right, he worked hard and he worked hard in the fundamentals. Like he developed his skill in where it was needed. It wasn't like he just was like, oh, I'm gonna be great. He worked on the little things so that way so it made a big difference. But anyways, back to football.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great time to be alive, and I think Patrick Mahomes is gonna win. Depending on how long his career goes, he could win. I mean, did you see some of the throws that guy made? I mean, practically falling on the ground, and he'd throw a freaking 30-yard football. I'm like, how in the world is he doing that? I mean, if he can keep up that skill, and that the thing that worries me about Patrick Mahomes is he's a safe quarterback whenever he runs, but running outside pocket, I mean, that's the one thing about Brady is Brady knows his limitations, and he knows one thing: he's a pocket quarterback, and he makes things happen in that pocket. And today's quarterbacks, they're a lot more mobile. They're moving outside the pocket, and they have they can make plays. Russell Wilson is another one that the guy can do 360s in the backfield, and nobody can tackle him, and then he throws a bomber down the field and makes a 60-yard touchdown. I mean, it's phenomenal to watch. It's exciting to watch, but Brady, I mean, a lot of the reason the guy's only been injured one time, and that was in, I believe, 2008, and it was something with his leg. Been a long time, so I can't remember all the details, but one time in his whole career, guy's been in the NFL. I mean, he's probably been probably had micro injuries or whatever. You know what it's like to be in some kind of football,
You,
high school
right,
football, or
you get beat up.
you're injured all the time. Yeah, you get a little beat up. So I'm sure Brady's been beat up over the years, but only one time has it actually taken him out of a game or out of a season. And out of 20 years in the NFL, one time. So the guy pocket quarterback, and just knows basically when to get rid of the ball, when to, I mean, that's why they say if you can get to Brady, if he can start, if he starts hearing footsteps, and he kind of does it. I think the older he gets, the more he does it. You'll see him, he'll get a sense that there's a defender right there, and instead of trying to be cute or do anything cool, he'll just kind of fall down to the ground because he knows it's coming. So he doesn't want to take those big hits. But I mean, he's had a 20-year career, and not a lot of football players can say that they've been able to last that long. So it's been an awesome ride, and with perspective and getting older, it's you realize people get old and retire, and I mean that's just kind of the name of the game, and it's going to be kind of a sad day whenever he finally does retire. But he's gave us over 20. If you're a fan of Tom Brady, obviously, he's given us over 20 years of excitement, and playoff runs, Super Bowl runs. Um, it's just amazing. 10 super. I mean, it's hard enough to make it to the playoffs. Making it to the Super Bowl is a whole nother game, and then to win the Super Bowl is a whole nother game. So the fact that he's done it 10 times, I mean, it's just amazing. And he's had a lot of help along the way. And I mean, there's so many factors. I mean, he's not just one man, but I think because of his hard work and dedication to the game and leadership, I think it really helps. Now you could say whatever organization he's at, it really helps push them toward the final destination of the Super Bowl. I mean, in 1 year, they turned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers franchise into a whole nother team. They haven't even made it to the playoffs in like 20 years or whatever it was. I don't know if it's quite that long, but it's been a long time since they even made it to the playoffs. And then to the Super Bowl has even been longer. And then in 1 year, Brady gets them all the way. And like I said, there's a lot of other factors. I don't want to just put it all on Brady, but he's a big portion of that. Like in 1 year, turn that franchise around, make it to the Super Bowl. That usually doesn't happen. It's usually a 2 or 3 year process, and he did it in 1 year. That's
Right.
a goat. That's a goat, man.
Well, I mean, you think about it, there's a lot of jitters and stuff that goes along when you get to that level. Like, just making it to the NFL, you got to change your mindset once you get there. This is me thinking hypothetically. Of course, I haven't been there, never will. Would like to, but would not, never will.
Yeah. Wouldn't we
uh,
all?
but so then once you get into it, you get your feet set and you can play pretty good, and then like you said, making it to the Super Bowl and stuff, and once you've been there once, you know what that feels like. It's just another game, even though it doesn't feel like another game, but that's all it is. It's another game. But once you've been there a handful of times, and then you can lead your team, like, oh no, this is, yeah, it's a Super Bowl, but we just play our game and we'll be good. Keeping those nerves. I think that's a big part of it too, is just understanding how to deal with your nerves at those higher expectations.
On the bigger stages.
Right. And if you haven't been there, it's a whole different, I'm sure, a whole different pressure cooker. But well, if you have been there, you can be like, hey guys, this is what you're going to feel like. This is what you feel like you're going to want to do, but this is what you're going to need to do.
Right, right.
But
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I don't know, man. I love this stuff. I love sports. I love hunting. Oh, motocross is going on right now too. I need to start adding that into our little podcast because I mean, I'm a big motocross guy. Have you watched any motocross this year at all?
no, I haven't.
You have offended me in the Sherman Temple. I now disown you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I get it. I get it. But you're into motocross though. I mean, went and watched them over there at the
Yeah,
stadium a few times.
yeah, I've been a couple times and stuff. Yeah, and I used to work at a motorcycle track, but I've done all these
Say,
youth
say
things.
that. Say that. Say that again. You froze up.
Uh, I used to work at a motorcycle track,
Oh, that's right.
so I've been around it for years, but I just haven't followed it.
Oh, gotcha. well, I'll go into that a little bit from what I can remember. Ken Roxon has the point lead right now. My favorite guy, because he's kind of the hometown favorite. Plus he's an exciting rider too, but he's also the hometown favorite is Eli Tomac. And he's currently sitting in third, I believe, in the points. He just hasn't been getting up for very much, or as much as he should be for a defending champion. So he's got to figure some stuff out. His biggest thing is he never gets good starts. I don't know what it is about his starts. I don't know if he's not aggressive enough on the starts, but the rest of the race, I mean, there's times he's like clear back in 15th and he'll find his way all the way up to second place, sometimes even first. It's like, place, if you just get a better start, you'd be 15, 20 seconds ahead of everybody else, but instead you're not aggressive on the starts and you're freaking, has to fight through everybody to get up to whatever place he finishes in. But this year the competition is really, really stiff. I mean, everybody's good. What's his name? Cody Webb. Is that right? The Webster. Webb, Roxon, Tomac. Who else is up there? Cincerillo. Right now, I can only think of their last names. I can't really think of their first names, but except Ken Roxon and Eli Tomac. But anyway, like they're all. I mean, the top five guys. They've been the top five guys pretty much every week. Top 5, top 10, and yeah, it's a crazy year this year. And then also to add in there, they're doing this crazy like 3 race at every town they're at. I'll have to look at the schedule, but I think they're going to finish up in Salt Lake. They're going to do the championship race in Salt Lake instead of Vegas like they usually do.
Huh.
For whatever reason. I might want to fact check me on that, but I believe that's what's happening. But what they're doing is they're going to all these states. And instead of just racing their one weekend and moving on to the next state, they've been racing at that state 3 race kind of. Basically what they're trying to do is because of the COVID protocols and all that good stuff, they're basically condensing their season. And so they're racing, I believe, a Saturday, Tuesday, and then Saturday again is what they're doing. And then moving to a different state. So it's kind of a crazy year this year because of that. But regardless, though, it's still always fun to watch. So I haven't caught a lot of the Tuesday races, but been a lot of fun. So I don't know. That's about all I got for sports, Joe. Do you got anything else?
No, I think we should call it. We're about an hour and 15.
Woo!
But yeah, I don't really have anything else. But so I guess I'll go ahead and send us down the road.
Yeah, you want me? You froze up again. You want me to, or you to?
You can go ahead and do it. I'm fine with that.
All right. Hey guys, I just want to say thanks again. If you're still listening at this point, definitely thank you. Thanks for subscribing to us, listening to us. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. We're working hard every week to try to make, good podcasts. And some of them we feel like we kind of hit it out the park or at least do a good job. And some weeks, maybe not so much, but we're trying week, and that's what really matters. We're really trying to grow this thing. So do us a favor, share the podcast and give us a like, help support us, help us grow. Really appreciate it. And with that said, guys, have a good week and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for listening to the Struggling Hunters. I'm out.
See ya.